So in this conversation, we're going to be talking about trademarks.
Trademarks as legal rights in certain elements of our brands and the branding image. So how important are trademarks in this branding conversation? Is this something that people should care about? Vic, you being the expert in this area for many, many decades.
I think having control over your brand, whether you are a individual artist or musician or part of a band or a group or a company, a music company, is vital. It's vital. Otherwise somebody could just take that off you. So it's really important.
And I think what we've discovered in our work together as well is that it's not that expensive to do. So that's why we encourage people who are starting out, so very early on, to think about this as an investment because of its accessibility. We're not saying it's free and we're not saying it's cheap, but it is accessible and a valuable commercial tool. So we are focusing about commerce here, or trade and being in the marketplace, because this is where trademarks work. Do we have a trademark, Vic, as the F list?
We do now, and I think it would be really, really useful to our community to talk about how we went through that process, and sort of how simple it was. So should we start by showing people our trademark certificate, what that looks like? So here we go. We have
Yay.
a letter from the IPO, the Intellectual Property Office, and this certificate was granted to us last March. This is proof. We have a number given and all of the categories listed, because you have to be very specific, don't you, Metka,
Yeah.
in the types of services and uses of which you have protection. So this is demonstrating to everybody that we are protected in certain categories, mainly around to do with music.
The trademark itself consists of the name, the F list for music. Is that correct? So the words themselves, right?
Absolutely. And I think do you want to go through the basics and explain to people what you can actually protect?
Sure, yeah. So trademarks are legal rights over commercial symbols, and commercial symbols can be anything really. The trademark law does not stop us from putting anything on the register. So in theory, we could put everything on the register, but there's some practical limits to what we are currently registering with the UK Intellectual Property Office, and that's just because of the way we record certain signs. So typically, what we register are words, combination of words, letters and words, so anything we sort of write down. The other typical example are logos. So it's a common way of putting ourselves out there in the marketplace for consumers to recognize. So words, logos, and then you have other combinations of non-conventional trademarks. So you have a combination of sounds, you have a combination of colors, shapes. And in theory, you could register scents, but this is the one where it's practically, as of yet, impossible to have an objective way of representing scents, right? So the way in which something smells like. If we did have in the future, if we did have a way of recording scents in an objective manner, that could change. So those are sort of the options, and it's very typical for these things for us to think as names, perhaps, the word marks. You would want to avoid being too descriptive, so you wouldn't just want to say, I'm a musician as a trademark. It would take some time to get consumers educated about that being a trademark, but those are the commercial signs that you could think about putting on a register. And we opted for the name or for the combination of words, the F list for music. And I guess when we will talk about why we didn't go just for the F list, we will talk about also certain limitations around not picking things that other people have already registered. So that is not allowed. You cannot have the same name registered as somebody else who's already put their mark on the register before you. Once you've registered a trademark, it will be yours for 10 years. If you want to keep using it afterwards and have it legally protected, you would have to renew it every 10 years. But it is possibly an unlimited intellectual property right pending on renewal, and you would have to use it as well.
Or we realized when we were setting up the company that there was a prior company just set up a short while previously, actually doing aeroplane fit outs, who were also called the F list. Totally different industries, airplanes, aeronautical industry. But they had registered that name with Company House, so we really wanted to emphasize the music element, so we came up with the F list for music, which is now protected by trademark law. Should we talk about the process and how one goes about doing this? If somebody out there, they want to, maybe register their artist name or their band name.
Yeah, and that was a conversation we've had, right? When we started thinking about having a registered trademark was, why do it, right? Why does it accompanying a brand? And it is because of that legal protection of somebody else not coming along and confusing the message you want to communicate to the market and your consumers, or just nicking it, right? It becomes a valuable asset and somebody else would want to maybe benefit from your reputation and good name. So once you've sort of developed and decided which of the brand elements you would want to maybe protect with a trademark, in the UK, it is very easy to find relevant information by visiting the website by the UK Intellectual Property Office. So you see you have other information as well. So if you were interested in other intellectual property rights, but we are going to focus on trademarks, and you can see that they regularly update the information if things change, and they give you in the contents all the different instructions and information you might want to need, beginning with apply for a trademark, and you just follow the steps, and you would start with register a trademark, and it gives you certain rules and things to think about. I would just like to perhaps continue the conversation. So we already discussed around the names or the sign you would want to select and think about. Are you going to be protecting words, combination of words, a made-up word, a made-up name of your band, or your own artistic made-up name? Or you would want to maybe choose a logo. And if you do that, do you think about who has created that logo for you? No, if you've done it, great, no problem. You will have copyright in that. So that is another intellectual property right in that graphic representation, in that artistic work. If you had somebody create it for you, you will want to make sure you have the rights in that logo so that you can then put it on the register. So you would want to avoid a conflict in the future where somebody else, the artist who has made the logo for you, has copyright, and you have registered a trademark. That would not be a comfortable situation. So best to think from the start, from the beginning. And if you need to get it transferred, so if somebody else has created the logo for you, and you need those rights, the copyrights, because you're wanting to register it as a trademark, make sure you have a written contract whereby the copyright in that logo is transferred to you for as long as you would want it to be. So ideally, you would have an outright transfer, an assignment of copyright in that logo. So then once you've registered a trademark, you have a whole set of intellectual property rights in that logo. So the other thing that I just wanted to mention now was that we had it very clear that we're trying to register the F list for music, so the combination of words. The conversation we then needed to have, and we also looked at perhaps some of the relevant trademarks in organizations that do the type of work that we were planning to do, was the services, the goods and services, the categories to which this trademark, this name would be attached. And I think this is the area where probably if you have never had experience with brands or trademarks, that you wouldn't know much about. When you have on the intellectual property office, you do have guidance that will tell you how to classify trademarks, the terminology that the Intellectual Property Office will use for goods and services is classifications, and they are in classes of goods and services. So you have different classes that you can choose. So for example, class 25 will cover clothing, footwear, and headgear. But if you're thinking, for example, of merchandising, and you're thinking about having t-shirts with, your artistic name, or a combination of your artist name and then something else on that t-shirt, then probably you would want to have class 25 covered by your trademark. There is no single way of doing it, but you can see also class 35 covers advertising, business management, and so forth. And we'll go back to, once we're sort of done with just this general overview, we'll reopen the F-list one just to tell you what we've opted as an option. The reason why it's helpful to think about this, well, there's several reasons, but one is it also helps with your strategy, right? Which are the areas of your business that you'll be using your trademarks. So one can just be entertainment services, but it can also be other parts. I don't know if you're teaching any of the instruments, or you're teaching any kind of singing, or something else related to music, or you have other educational services attached to your business, then maybe educational services should be covered by your trademark. So it depends on the type of activities you're doing. And the other reason why it's really important, it's not just for your own planning and the use of the trademarks, it's also important for what it will cover you for, at least in the beginning, before, for example, you would develop a reputation with your own work, is that trademarks will offer protection when other people are either using an identical sign on identical goods, so they're doing exactly as you are and they're using your name or your logo, or they're using something that looks like, so either an identical or similar logo, something that looks like your logo or a combination of your words, in identical or something similar to the work you're doing, so perhaps not exactly the same. So trademarks will stop other people in similar areas from using your symbols. What they don't stop at the beginning is, if somebody was trying to use the F-list for music for, I don't know, just like we said before, plain engines, right? Not at the beginning, not until we create reputation, and that happens usually with the extensive use and over time in the future. So if you imagine Rolex or other marks like Apple or McDonald's, nobody can use these trademarks even if they are using or offering goods and services that are completely different. And so in the same way, for us, when you start out as an artist, your trademark will offer you protection in the classes you designate, so that helps with careful planning. And practically, the more classes you choose, the more money you have to pay. So there is an additional fee, starting fee at the beginning, and we can even maybe have a look at these fees for extra classes. So we will see that a single online trademark application today. So just to say that we're recording this in February 2024. Currently, a single online trademark application covering one class will cost you £170. If you choose the same application with 3 classes, you have a bit of a discount. So it's 270. But then for each extra, so the application and first class, 170, for the extra 2 classes, 100. And then if you keep adding classes, they will charge you more. And realistically, unless you're a really big business, it's unlikely you'll be using a trademark across many, many classes. And if you register a trademark for a class of goods or services and then don't use it for 5 years, it is possible for other people to come along and take it away from you and say you're not using it, so it shouldn't be registered. So it makes sense to register a trademark in the classes of goods and services for the types of products you are either putting on the market or services you're offering in the market, or you're planning to in the next 5 years. I think that's in terms of the general instructions, is just to say that it's all on the UK Intellectual Property Office website. You would want to think about the sign you will register. So whether it's words, logos, combination of colors, or something different. You will want to think about the goods and services you will be offering in the market under that sign, under that name or logo or whatever the trademark might be. And in terms of the money that it will cost you, you will want to sort of just, the numbers are not that big, so I forget where we have it here, but it was between 170, possibly to 70, or if you're adding more classes, it might cost you £50 for each additional class. Like we also said, you cannot register something that already somebody else has put on the register in the UK. So we have that as a rule. So you cannot go on the registry and select a trademark that somebody else already has. So what we did was we Googled it a little bit, the F list. We Googled that first. We saw there was a whole range of different organizations that were using that short name. And then the F list for music was available. Nobody else was using it. And if you want to see what is already on the registry, you can click on the Search UK Trademark, Search UK Trademark classes. So you can do that as well to see. So I'm going to show you this just as an example first. So let's say we would be trying to say piano. Let's see if it comes up. 11 classes. So class 15, musical instruments, musical stands, and stands for musical instruments, conductors, batons. That might be relevant to some people's business or not. And you have then further explanation of the categories. Where else does it come up? So we see it also coming up in class 41 under education, providing of training, entertainment, sporting, and culture activities. So again, in our conversation, perhaps one of the more important ones, and then you have others which are perhaps less important. So to know what is already registered in the UK, you can search the registry for free online. You don't have to pay to see what is registered. If you have a trademark number, although that will be rare, you can search like that by owner, keyword, phrase, or image. Let's see if there's any trademarks registered that have music in them, and you see 41 marks. You can see, right, the trademarks here, what they are. This one, probably people can recognize. This is Amazon, isn't it? And of course, for our own benefit, we just want to make sure we are on this list as well. Well, we are there. So that's this was the exact match. Vick has already shown the certificate, but we are now discoverable on the registry, which is, again, it's open, it's free to use, and you can see when the registered trademark was filed, when it was put on the registry, and when we are renewing. So we are renewing it on the 12th of December, 2032. So it's 10 years from the priority date. So the filing date is the priority date. And that for us was when Vick applied to have it registered, not at the date of 10th of March 2023, when we were notified that we were successful. And the list of goods and services now. So if we look at the ones we've chosen to go for, let's start just with, so class 25 is clothes, clothing, footwear, and similar. We then have class 35, promoting the music of others by means of, so we have a specific description there. So this is a services classification. We then have class 38, access to content, websites, importance, and more of the relevant information there. And class 41, we have education and training in the field of music, entertainment, so forth. So these were the 4 groups that we found the most important ones for us to focus on. And if we wanted to, we could always go back and add classes to our registration later on. I mean, how easy did you find it? So I don't know if everyone caught that we got it in less than 3 months, right? So it wasn't that difficult of a process.
Really easy. The online form is really easy. I think just a bit of thought beforehand on the classes, and that was it really. You know, and as you say, we did our own searches both in the register and on Google as to what else was out there. But the part of their checking process is they do a very very thorough check, don't they? They've got their own means. And there were no problems at all, so it was very smooth.
So we do highly recommended, right? If anyone is planning to sell things, offer goods and services in the marketplace, that's something that is probably the most accessible of investments, right? It's something that, yes, it costs, it's not free. And we are aware that every £100 matters, but in the larger scheme of things, it's an investment you can maybe plan towards.
If you build up a audience, fan following, or a reputation using a particular artist's name, it would be an incredible interruption to your business if somebody else started using your name and they trademarked it.
Yeah.
That would be critical, I think, in terms of a music career. So you get to, you certainly get to a level where this is not just a nice to have, it's absolutely, it's necessary.
And then, of course, there is a whole conversation to be had around, what is a good trademark, what will stand out. You don't want it to be, just your first name, if it is a regular name, if it is a commonplace name, because, other people can use their own names, even if you register it as a trademark. You might have more success with registering your first name and your second name. So to have first name and last name. But so it all depends around branding and how you position yourself. So that the trademark conversation has to, or planning and strategy happens together with your branding development. And that's why we will have a separate set of informational content, whether recorded or in written format, that Vick is leading on as well, around branding and creating your branding and brand identity and how to approach that as well.
Yeah, just to finish off, I just want to show everyone on our website, at the bottom, we now have registered trademark for the F-list for Music CIC, registered 2024, all rights reserved. So, that's a statement, public statement to everybody that we have registered our name, so they're not to use it.